there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do a landscape. This is from a photo that I took on vacation last week, and I thought it would make a really nice landscape. I shared the photo on Instagram and asked you guys if you were interested in a tutorial for this, and I get a lot of people saying yes, so that's what we're going to do today. And if you are watching this on the 30th of July 2019, you have one day left to save 50% on my new watercolor landscape workshop course. It is an in-depth course on how to paint landscapes, so if you want more information on that, check it out in the video description. The coupon code is landscape50 off, and it is good through August 1st, so make sure you check that out. So I have fully wet this paper, and I'm just using some cheap cellulose paper, the Strathmore Wind Power. I recently cleaned my studio. I was kind of stressed out before vacation, and I found a bunch of different paper pads, watercolor pads that were like on the tail end, and I wanted to use those up. So what I'm going first with here is some cool to neutralize yellow. So you can use a lemon yellow, a cad yellow light, or a Hansa yellow light. Just put it in fairly lightly. You're not going to see so much of it in the water, but just kind of keep it on your palette. Now this is very, very watery. It's a pretty strong color. Now I'm going to go in with some Alizarin Crimson or quinacridone rose or permanent rose, a rose madder, whatever you have for a cool red. And we're going to throw this in kind of right underneath, right like at the horizon. We're going to bring that down into the water area a bit. Now this is going to shift a little bit lighter because we have a lot of water on our paper. I taped kind of a border so that I wouldn't have any paint seep down into the other pages in my pad, and also because I like to have the nice white border. Okay, now I'm going to go in with some Pthalo blue or Pthalo turquoise. You just want to make sure you have a very cool blue here, and you want to start it at the top and try not to overlap the yellow in the sky because you don't want to have a green. Now this is a really strong color, so you will want to rinse your brush and kind of spread it down a little bit, just trying to avoid that yellow so you don't end up with green. Then I'm going to take some of that color and I'm going to add some of the red to it that we just used. And so you get a very bluish, not super vibrant purple. And I'm going to add some of that into the sky. Really, really wet, so we're getting kind of some clouds. Just kind of rocking my brush here and there, letting the paint flow. Pick up a little bit more blue. This is a gorgeous sunset. I snapped a picture of it. We were all hanging out. The kids were swimming. I was sitting by the campfire. A nice evening. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the red. Because you'll get these different reflections in the clouds. It's going to take on different colors that you see in the sky. You can even tip your paper a little bit too if you want to encourage it to flow one way or the other. Let's see, can you see that on screen? I'm just grabbing the red. I still have a little residue in my brush, so I don't think I'm going to add any more to that. I'm just going to add that color a little bit more strongly. I can work it back up into the other colors. I've sprayed my paper and then I wet it with the brush, as you recall, so this paper is really wet. It's not starting to dry out. Even though it's a cellulose paper, I find that it's keeping the moisture really well. Now this is the Wind Power paper, which is a recycled paper by Strathmore, and because it's recycled, I think that's why you get so much more of like a sizing. It just seems to stay wet a lot longer. I just love what the clouds are doing there. I love that kind of bleed. My reference photo does have a few more clouds in there, but I don't think I really want to add them. Plus we're going to have some like this like a mountain in the background there that's going to cover up some of that. So I think I kind of just want to leave that the way it is. And I'm going to tip it a little bit so you don't see the glare. And I want to go in with a little bit more yellow now. Make sure you really clean your brush good. Still using that same 3/4 inch flat. These are the Mimic brushes from Jerry's Artarama. The Mimic Squirrel, which is a faux squirrel. Go in and add some yellow in this area. It's getting kind of dirty from the purple that I had there, but that's all right because it's not really bright. I just want to have that in there to temper my red a little bit. Now, the interesting thing I found with this photo was that the water actually showed richer colors than the sky, which usually doesn't happen. And I even looked back at my raw photos to make sure I didn't do something inadvertently to give it that effect when I was editing it. And the colors in the water were richer. I thought that was really interesting because usually the water compresses the values and you end up with your darks being a little bit lighter and your lights being a little bit darker. But for whatever reason, this time of day, it really made the water pretty. Go real dark in here with our like purpley, our dull purpley mix. And I'm going to get some of that blue kind of on its own. Now your paper is going to be sopping wet, so just go with it. You know, it's going to really be juicy there. Now, I know it looks weird that we have this yellow here and we have yellow over here, but the way that the reflections worked this way, it almost seems like it's skewed across, and plus we're going to have like a mountain range in there, and a lot of that yellow is going to be covered up. So I don't want to really mess with that too much. I am going to do a little bit more of the purpley colors in here. And I really want to get a little more of that gold in there. So the important thing to do to make sure is that nothing is drying yet. As soon as the paper starts drying, you're going to have trouble. Might be able to put a little bit more of that gold over here without it getting too green. There's a little bit of greenish hue in the water. Alright, at this point we want to let this dry. So if you feel like you have too many brush strokes, what you can do before you start drying it or leaving it alone, you can tap it, and that's going to help move your pigments around. But I'm actually going to use a heat tool on this, dry it, and then we'll come back and we'll put our silhouette elements in. Okay friends, we are back. This is dry. I just love the way the sky turned out. I love the way the water turned out. This just looks like the pond to me, and I love it. And that's what, when you're painting from your own reference or from life, you're outside painting the scene around you, it should really feel like sitting there. It should feel like that way that place feels to you, and that's how this does to me. I just love the texture in the sky. I think it works really well, and I'm not going to overlay any clouds. Of course, you could if you wanted to, but I really like this. Now remember, the reason our yellow didn't go to green, even though it was a neutral to cool yellow, is because we added in that kind of purpley bit in there, so that just neutralized the colors so that we didn't end up with any yucky mud. So everything is nice and fresh. I list these colors down below as well, so you can find them if you forget. So now I'm going to mix up a really dark color, and I've switched brushes. See how this brush has golden hair? This is a golden Taklon brush. This is an Aqualon 3/4 inch. You can use whatever you want. Just you want a brush that's not going to add a ton of water to your mix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my red that I've been using. So if you used Alizarin Crimson, use Alizarin Crimson. If you used quinacridone red, use quinacridone red. Use whatever you have been using, and then add it to your phthalo blue or your phthalo cyan or your phthalo turquoise, whatever you were using. What we're going to go for is a really, really dark blue. And I don't want to contaminate my pan, so I'm going to get the extra paint off of there. Remember, you always clean your brush in the dirty water, then do a final rinse in the clean. We're scraping off the extra water. I still need some water, but I'm scraping off the extra because I don't want to lighten up my mix here. So I'm going to get some more of that phthalo blue there from the pan. I want to get as much as I can without adding a bunch of water. This is my tried and true, you probably can't see that. This is my tried and true old Pike palette. Like, I got this secondhand about 20 years ago, and it had some paint in it, and I just added to it as need be. And I mean, this is such a mishmash of colors, but I just love it. Now, I need a little more red in there. It's kind of like a navy right now. I'm going to see if I can... Sometimes you can just go in and grab some color without totally contaminating it. And now I've got a really, really deep purple. I need to neutralize that purple, so I'm just going to grab some of that yellow. Because yellow will want to make it brown a little bit, but it will kind of neutralize the purple. And you want to make sure you have enough. So I'm going to rinse my brush here. I'm going to grab a little more yellow. And when you're mixing a neutral from 3 primaries, like we are here, what you're doing is you are learning to balance your colors. So making your own grays, browns, and blacks is really important because it teaches you how to balance. Now if I look at this, I say, ooh, that's brownish, but you know, it looks a little green. So what's the opposite of green? If you look at a color wheel, the opposite of green is red. I wish I, oh, look at this. I've got a color wheel right here. I can show you. So the opposite of green, if it looks kind of greenish, is red. So if you have a hard time remembering what your complementary colors are, then you can make yourself a little color wheel or print one off the internet or go to the art store and buy one. So I'm going to add my red in here. Ooh, it's kind of got some orange undertones. Well, the opposite of orange. What's the opposite of orange? It is blue. So I know if I add a little more blue in there, then I'll be able to balance that color and it should be fine. Now I don't want to waste a bunch of color by rinsing it off, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab some blue. I think that will be... Generally, I find that as long as my brush isn't too wet, I can grab those colors and I don't contaminate the pans, with the exception of yellow. You always want to clean your brush before yellow. There, and now look at this, we're getting a more of an inky black. So, you know, you definitely want to make sure you have true primary colors so that you can make those opposites, but you can pretty much mix your blacks and grays from any color palette you're already working from, you know, because you'd have a variety of colors generally. And this is going to look so much better than using a black ink. Alright, so I've got this brush already loaded, so I am going to do some painting with this. The thing I love about a flat brush like this is that it's so easy to get a nice straight edge. I'm just going to make sure my hand is dry because I hate it when I've got water in my hand, I don't realize it, and then I drag it along my paper. So I'm holding this at an angle. It probably looks kind of awkward, but I am going to go right along as carefully as I can my horizon line, which I drew on before I started painting. I just actually pretty much right in the middle, which isn't really what, you know, it design-wise it is kind of a no-no, but rules are meant to be broken. Sometimes it works really well to have your horizon line in the middle. Generally because it'll work really well if you have a reflection or if you have, you know, sky and water, you know, you just want to really make the most of that. And I'm just going to use the edge of my brush to paint in that foliage. Now I'm trying to go kind of quickly because I don't want to have a hard line. And I'm just looking back and forth at my reference photo, trying to get the shape of this mountain. This would be Chick Hill off in the distance. And this will be a painting that, you know, I stick in my folder. Maybe I'd frame it. Maybe I'd frame it because it's a nice vacation memory. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not like, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to paint how it felt to be there. Now it kind of drops off because actually this is actually quite a deep scene. This hill's actually really far away. not really far away, but it's not like it's not bordering the water. There's actually like a road between the edge of the pond. There's some forest and there's a road. There's like a whole other side of the pond with camps and stuff on it. But still we see the reflection in the water. So I find reflections really tricky to do without a reference, because depending on the angle of view, how you're taking the picture, the angle of the light, the angle, like where you're standing, how high things are, there's so many ways that things can change. I think one of those times when it's hard to talk and paint at the same time, probably because I've been on vacation for the last week. I find that when I use a big brush, it keeps me from getting too fussy. Like if I just tap this brush here, I'm getting the tips of trees, and nothing is getting too fussy, and that's what I like. Alright, so now we're going to have to get some reflections in here. And I'm going to start close to the edge, but I do want to leave a little sliver at the edge of the pond there. Just to kind of break up that space. Now if you weren't happy, you finish your painting and it's all done, and you're not happy and you wish you had a little bit more light, a little bit more solid shadow, you could definitely go in with another layer, or you could go in with some ink if you're just like, I just can't get it dark enough for these paints. Maybe you're using student grade paints and you just can't get that concentration. That's fine. That's fine. Go ahead and do that, but definitely try to mix it on your own first. I'm just going to kind of drag down. It's okay if the water reflection's a little distorted. And something you could do, if it's easier for you, you could turn your paper around and you could, you know, if it's easier for you to mirror it that way you're looking at more of an abstract issue, like an abstract scene, than, you know, you're trying to copy like a picture, you know, because your brain won't necessarily say, oh, that's a mountain. Your brain will say, oh, that's a shape I need to mirror. And it just takes some of the worry away, kind of. And actually, I found that the reflection of this mountain, and it could be the height of it, the distance away, this showed up as taller than the reflections of these areas here. Which again is something I would not know without a reference photo, because there's so many variables with reflections. Now I like to drag my reflections so I get a little bit more of a watery appearance. But you might have some issues if you're doing this with a student grade paint. You might have some problems where your paint might want to lift. And so it's really important also that you keep that your background is very dry. And if you are going to do another layer over it, that you make sure it dries completely. Otherwise, you're going to lift. Even if using artist grade paints, you're going to lift. So I like getting this. I like getting the shimmer you get by dragging. You don't have as much room to drag over here. I'm trying to get this far away reflection on the water done before I run out of paint. I'm going to have to mix up some more for some trees on the edge, but because these are all kind of the same, all these reflections are connected, I want to have them. I don't want to remix. Even though I'm pretty confident I can get the exact same color and value, I'd rather just not leave it a chance and get it done in one go. When you're dry brushing like this, your paper is going to dry really fast, so you know you can shimmer it. You can shimmer your paint a little bit and not have an issue. And you can take some of that light out in the center if you don't like it. Oh, I love that. I think it's so pretty. Okay, so we're going to mix up some more color. And if that, you know, skip ahead if you don't want to see that done, but if you want a little help with that, then stay tuned here. All right, I'm going to grab my yellow first because I don't want to dirty up that yellow pan. We're going to plop that right down in there. Get all that off my brush, clean my brush. And I go in with my blue, And I'm cleaning up that pan too. I'm cleaning up that pan from the last time. And I'm mixing with this one. We're going to be painting with a round brush, but I like to mix up with this one because it's so resilient. When you get a big flat, it's much more resilient than a round, so you don't want to wear down those pointy round bristles. Let's see what we got with these two. It's really pasty. I don't want to waste all that paint, so I'm just going to squeeze out as much as I can. Alright, now I'll clean it before I go get some red. So I don't think I'll need to mix it up again, so I don't want to have to go back in. This will be my cleaning mix. Clean off that palette. Alright, let's see what we got here. Ooh! Look at that, it's getting nice and dark. Yeah, a little bit more of that yellow in there. I'm going to need a little more blue, I think, because it's got a little bit of an orangey vibe. I'm going to waste that, so I'm going to squeeze off what I can. And add a little bit more blue. And I'll add the blue off to the edge as well, so that I can always kind of go back in and grab more if I need to without having to go back into my pan. Oh, I think this is going to do it. Oh, that's a nice dark. Yeah, I think that's going to work just fine. Okay, so we got this nice dark blue. It's kind of like a, it looks almost black, very close to what we have there, if not the same. And I'm going to throw in some trees over here. I am actually going to start with this big brush since it's already full. And I know I want to have it pretty full over here because that's how I took the photo. I was kind of on the dock, just kind of leaning over as far as I could to get this picture. So I just want to make sure that, you know, I want to get that kind of peekaboo effect. It's funny because there was a big bald eagle that was nesting up in the trees right in this area here, and you could see, like I was going out on the paddleboard, I could see it. You could see it from the end of the dock. It was just really cool because there were several eagles flying around there, and you don't see that every day where I live. Even though I do live in a fairly rural part of Maine, this is just even more rural, and it was really, really cool to see. Alright, so because of all this dark color that I've mixed up, I will need to wash this brush with soap and water when I'm done. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. I'm going to use this round here. I think this is a number 10 round. I'll load it up real good. Okay, and this is kind of tricky because I don't want to cover up too much. I really like the sky and the water. It was really tough to leave this place this week. Usually I'm like, I'm ready by the time the end of the week. I'm ready to come back home and get to work, and you know, I'm all revived, rejuvenated, and I did feel very revived and rejuvenated, but I felt a little sad to go this year. Maybe it's because the kids are getting older and I don't know how many more summers they'll want to, you know, hang out with their parents at the pond, but I'm sure that's part of it. But it's just so nice. I was really, really in need of a couple days away, a week away. It was really nice. Now you'll be seeing through some of these areas until it dries. If you do need, like I mentioned before, if you do need that an extra layer, you can do that. I don't really want to have any specific trees here. I'm just kind of getting the just that edge of the water. Oops, that's really blue. How'd that happen? Grab some red in there. I think I had a little chunk of blue on my palette. And I think I might have had a chunk of the wrong blue on my palette. Sometimes that happens because I'll squirt out a color that I don't have on my palette that I want to use for painting, but there's like a little bit left and I don't want to, there it is right there. and I don't want to waste it, you know, so I just leave it on my palette, and then I'll be mixing, you know, and not really thinking about it, and I'll run into that old paint. But by golly, I didn't waste it. I just let it ruin a whole other painting. No, it's not going to ruin anything. Honestly, I think it might have been a little bit of turquoise gouache or something. So I'm just pulling out some little pine needles here. I think it's a nice texture. It's a nice contrast to this really thick glob of foliage. So we can throw in some little bitty pine needles, or whatever type of branch and tree you are having in the scene that you're painting. It could be a palm tree. If you're painting a tropical scene, it could be, if it's a fall scene, it could be just like bare branches. I think maybe you could do some cattails, you could do some lily pads, you could do whatever you want. I think maybe I'll just put a couple little grasses coming out here too. And yeah, I almost feel like I want something on this side, but there really isn't, because that would be the end of the duck. I feel like I want to glaze over that area right there. It just feels a little too choppy. I like the reflection. I just feel like up here it's just a little bit too streaky, so I'm just filling that in. I'm just glazing over with what I have left. Really don't want to mix up a bunch more. Could do some lily pads over on the other side. There were so many water lilies. They're really pretty. I don't like to swim near them though, because they give me the oogies. Get my legs cut like touching them. Oh, I don't like to touch plants in the water. Let's see, do I want now? I don't think I really want any water lilies. I think I might bring a branch out a little bit further here though. So this is where you go away from your reference photo. We talk about that in the class a lot, about you know, going away from your reference photo and doing your own thing a little bit, so that you're not a slave to your reference photo and you can create the environment that you want when you're painting. That's what I'm doing here, because I feel like it's just too straight down there, even though that's what my reference photo, the photo I took, shows. I want to have that feeling of just kind of being engulfed in nature here, just engulfed in the forest. So I'm throwing in some scruffiness down here, using up what I have left for paint, because I really don't want to throw some more in. I don't want to mix any more up. Alright, I'm going to dry this, and then we'll take the tape off and we'll see what we got. Okay, let's take the tape off and see. A tip on this paper, because it is a cellulose paper, it can be a little delicate. So when you use your heat gun to dry the paper, just go over the tape area as well if you're getting ready to remove the tape, because it does make it a lot easier to remove. So, and also when you're pulling your tape off, pull it off at a sharp angle. So by that I mean, if you look here, I am going to pull that off against itself like that, and usually that helps from tearing. It is tearing a little bit there, and if that happens, I go in from the other side. And if it still wants to tear, then I grab my heat tool or my hair dryer, whatever you have that can warm that up a little bit, and just blast the tape, and that weakens the adhesive temporarily, so you can get the tape off a lot more easily. It's also a good trick for, like, if you got price tags on something that you need to remove, or you want to remove the label on like a glass jar. Heating it up usually helps because it weakens that adhesive. It's a little drawback of this paper. I really like the way the paint behaves on it, but it does, you know, it does want to grab the masking tape. I could use painter's tape, but I usually find this Dollar Tree masking tape to be really low tack. Now I like that. There was one other thing I was considering adding. Would be a couple birds and then the bird reflections, just so I could balance this side out. I think I want to do that, but I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, and hopefully I don't regret it. So if in case I do regret it, picture this and pretend this is how it ended. And now I'm going to give that other bit a try. I do need to mix a little bit more up just to make sure it's dark enough. Okay. It's a little nerve-wracking. You usually have like I actually have a lot of loons. They're so loud. I love the sound though. I just love the sound of the loons. Now, because I don't trust myself, I'm going to flip this around and do my reflections this way. So if I turn it upside down, then I can just paint the birds pretty normally. This one's up a little bit higher. Let's get a short one on this side and a little bit longer one with a curve on that side. And this one. I know I can't talk when I'm doing this. This is awful. I'm like, it's nerve-wracking. Oh, I like it though. What do you think? I like it. You can make them darker if you want. Now it's like, okay, I can actually darken that up now. I was a little nervous. I gotta be honest. I was like, well, what if I mess this up? I'm gonna feel so sad. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Oh, that just because you do see these birds, and there you go. I'll probably sign my name there, but there you have it. This is fun, easy. I hope you try it. And if you want more help with your landscapes, please check out my watercolor landscape workshop. Normally it's $79, but if you use the coupon code Landscape50 off before August 1st or through August 1st, you can save 50%, so you get it for $39.50. And you get feedback from me on your artwork that you choose to share. You don't have to, but it's there if you need it. You can upload your artwork. And there's lots of different tutorials for trees and rocks and skies, and then also for real-time, full, long painting tutorials to follow along. So I'm getting really great feedback from the course already, and I would love it if you want to join me. So thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and until next time, happy crafting!